through the lot, now you know I'm coming through. When the growth look good on you, best believe they wanna screw now. I've been trying to climb, devil threw me in the dark. Baby, don't be insecure, you can still go make a mark like blow. Could never let them drain my soul now. Blow. Table turning like doorknobs, wow. Blow. I think I'm about to set sail. I'm a walking, living legend, walking with my chest out. Life keep dealing me cards, I keep fitting in love.
What is going on, people? G, you already know what time it is. You know what it is. We're back in the damn building. Big up everybody who has been subscribing to the channel as of recently. Big up everybody who's been watching all the videos, and big up everybody who's been sharing out the content, man. Much love in the last few days. We're growing the channel day by day. Also, as well, make sure, obviously, my brother Jerry, make sure you guys are heading over there to support Jerry. He's on the way to 2 million subscribers. So make sure, obviously, you guys are hitting that subscribe button for both channels and obviously pushing out our content. Now, today we're here for another Scout Watch. Obviously, yesterday put out the Wataru Endo. Obviously, Liverpool looks like the medical, I believe it should be done by the time that this video is out. If not, it will be done very, very soon. Looks like he might be Liverpool's new player. I mean, I was going to say midfielder, but I mean, this guy's played centre back and all these other, all these other things. So, who knows where he's going to play when he does come into Liverpool. But today, recently in the last couple of days, just little bit of news, so to speak, in regards to Liverpool's supposed interest in Belgian youngster Johan Bakayoko. Now, the PSV winger, I believe he's only 20 years of age at this current moment in time. He actually does have 4 caps for Belgium, and he's actually got himself a goal. He plays on the right wing for both Belgium and PSV, and apparently Liverpool have got a bit of an interest in him. Now, obviously, before we dive into the stats and stuff like that, obviously, some people probably looked at that and thought to themselves, wow, why would Liverpool be in, for another forward, another right winger, blah, blah, blah. And I think it makes sense. I'll be totally honest with you. As much as Ben Doak is really, really good, I think we've also got to remember and understand there are levels to certain things. Of course, look, Ben Doak's a prospect at Liverpool, and I do believe that most of us will probably say, he's quite an exciting player. He's definitely a player that, we could potentially see, on that right-hand side. If he obviously gets the right development and stuff like that, then perfect. So it makes sense why so many people do have a lot of stock, in someone like, Ben Doak. But ultimately, is he ready? And listen, look, you're only going to be ready if you play. So, of course, he needs to actually play games and, be able to get into the team and all these other, different type of things. He needs games and all that kind of stuff. But because of his age, it's going to be difficult for him. Now, it will be different if we were, talking about a young Kylian Mbappe. And I'm not saying, by the way, Bakayoko is that, because he's not. But in terms of like the level, when you look at someone like that, you're like, yeah, well, this guy's ready to play first team football regardless, whether it's on the wings, whether it's up front, it doesn't really matter. He can play, in those kind of positions. But when you're looking at players, in the kind of realms of like the Ben Dokes and stuff like that, I feel like he's stuck between, not him himself, he probably trusts his own abilities and he's probably confident that he could potentially, force his way into the team, especially if Mo Salah was to drop form or injured or, when he goes away for AFCON and all these kind of different things. But he's kind of stuck. And I think Klopp and the rest of the team, I feel like they'd be a little bit stuck with someone like him, where he's at an age that you're like, really and truly, you probably still would play him in the under 21s. I think it's the under 21s now, formerly the under 23s, but the under 21 kind of competitions, which I believe he probably will still play in, in the majority of the season, of course, unless again Mo Salah was to get injured, even though we did see him, appear against Chelsea on the weekend. But at the same time, because of his age and ability, it's almost like they don't really know. Now, by the way, I'll keep mentioning with Bakayoko, I'm not saying that Liverpool are 100% in for him. It's just more news that was just kind of floating about. And I said, what, let's take a little look into him. Could he be someone that we might potentially want to sign? But, with someone like Ben Doak, like I said, it's just tricky because, again, my own opinion is that when it does come to like youngsters and stuff like that, it's not that Klopp won't necessarily give them a chance, so to speak. It's just more I don't feel like he gives them a real chance, in that kind of regards. I mean, ultimately, if you're good enough, you'll play. So we saw Trent come into the team. Obviously, context, Nathaniel Klein was injured. We had no one else really to play that position. He ended up playing there and was able to, he was allowed that time to be able to develop into the player that he is today. When you've got a player like Mo Salah on that side, someone who doesn't get himself injured, someone who's rarely going to miss games, through injury or anything or suspension, you're left in that kind of position where, well, he's Liverpool's best attacker, one of Liverpool, if not Liverpool's best player, one of the most, if not the most important player that we do have in the team, especially in an attacking sense. It's going to be difficult for someone to try and come in there. Now, obviously, I prefer rotation. I do, of course. Listen, some players in the world and some positions in the world, you just don't rotate. So you don't rotate Messi, you don't rotate Haaland, you don't rotate Ronaldo, Mbappe. These kind of guys, it's you don't really rotate these kind of guys. And maybe you'd throw Salah into that kind of category because to me, the right wing market isn't that great, so to speak. I feel like there are lots of youngsters, Bakayoko being one, Barcola obviously another, and Doku being another one. Saka's obviously out there as one of the best youngsters out there, if not one of the best right wingers, arguably out there at this current moment in time. But when Mo Salah's there, it's going to be difficult. Even Saka would have trouble trying to get into the team, in this Liverpool team, so to speak, just because Mo Salah doesn't get injured and he's still performing, in terms of the numbers wise and stats wise, he's still, performing better than everybody else, on that kind of side. So it is tricky with a Bendo. What do Liverpool do? Do they decide to, just keep him in around the first team squad? Like I mentioned, he did obviously play, against Chelsea on the weekend. So do we see that as, maybe we just keep him there? Or is it a case of maybe goes out on loan for a season? He hasn't played senior men's football, which I think is so vitally important for players, at certain ages. And of course, when you've got this level of ability, because it's going to be so difficult for you to get into these teams. And we don't have a manager who likes to rotate. So thus far, as of today's day, he's not shown me he's a manager who likes to rotate. If it's not cup competitions, I'm talking Premier League, like I see other managers do. They'll rotate their teams regardless of who's fit, who's not fit. It's always going to be, well, if you're out of form, which should be the case, if you're out of form, you're on the bench. We should have adequate enough cover to be able to come in and, play in those kind of positions. But ultimately for Liverpool, I don't really feel like that's really been a thing since Jurgen Klopp has kind of come in. So when now we've got Ben Doak, that's why people are like, hey, you know what? Listen, Salah, if you're not on your A game, for, in periods of the season, we know Salah has his 8-game period near enough every single season where he's just, completely just off the boil, so to speak, then maybe Ben Doak potentially comes in, maybe so. But when then we're looking at someone like a Bakayoko, who I feel is probably the next level up that Ben Doak would need to get to, in my personal opinion, having watched him and, seeing what he's all about, especially last season, for PSV. I feel like that's the next stage, would I say, for someone like a Ben Doak, is to be able to perform at that kind of level before you can then even have a conversation about, yeah, maybe I need to come into the team and, maybe I deserve it, all that kind of stuff, when Salah is obviously off form. So that's why today I wanted to, just take a little look, at someone like a Bakayoko and just kind of see really what he's all about, and wanted to compare him, to a few other players as well, just in terms of, how he's done and things like that. So yeah, man, let's just dive straight into that. Let's take off the banner. Make sure you guys are obviously smashing the like button. Make sure you're subscribing to the channel, please. Like I said, we are on the road to 800. So we can see here, as I mentioned, he's a right winger, or he is a winger, but he mainly plays, on that right hand side. We'll take a look, obviously, at his stats and things like that in a moment. But yeah, mostly plays on that right hand side. I would kind of say he's someone he's left footed. So again, just like Salah, just like Ben Doak. I wouldn't say he's that comfortable on his on his right foot, should I say. So he is predominantly going to try and come, cut in field, which you can kind of see on the heat map there, with some of the positioning that he's actually got. It is quite infield, so to speak, obviously on that right hand side, but you can see as he gets closer and closer to the box, it is coming a little bit more infield, than most, which is understandable. Again, he is predominantly, left footed. He's quite a fearless individual, someone who, excuse me, someone who is going to run at, just like Ben Doak again, in terms of what they do. I just think he's a little bit better at that. Again, it's not massively, I don't think he's light years ahead of Ben Doak. So please don't think that this is a video where I'm trying to get onto Ben Doak or anything like that. I think Ben Doak's a pretty decent player. And I think with the right development, he could go on to become a top player. But just for the purpose of this video, when I'm looking at Bakayoko, he's very unpredictable. You know, you don't know which way he's going to go. Fantastic dribbling ability, very good ball control, close ball control as well. And he's also a player who loves to pick out a pass. You know, he's able to find these kind of passes. That is something that with Ben Doak, he definitely needs to improve upon, is his end product and his final ball. We've seen it already. He does all the good stuff. It's like all the good foreplay. But when it gets down to doing the deed, I don't know about that one. Do you know what I mean? But watching Bakayoko, he really does produce quite well. If I'm being totally honest with you, you can see here just a quick shot, you know, of him obviously playing that ball in behind and stuff like that. Again, this is just more of a snapshot, you know, if anything. But even when he's in these kind of 1v1 positions, again, he's very good at taking on his opponent. He's very good at getting past his opponent. Either he's going to go down to the byline and then put the ball in. Yes, he's not as good with his right foot as he is with his left foot, but he's still efficient enough, you know, to be able to do so. And because he's got that confidence on his left foot, he's most likely going to try, you know, to come in. But he loves to stand up players, and his dribbling ability, guys, you really do need to go out there. I don't want to get copyrighted, otherwise I would put a video, you know, on these kind of shows. But when you watch his dribbling ability, it really, really is good. So yeah, I think when I'm looking at something like that, you know, someone who can be a bit of a direct runner, but can also be a little bit unpredictable, someone who's got fantastic dribbling ability, has got a keen eye for a pass and stuff like that, that's when I'm like, all right, cool. You know what? You're exhibiting, you know, in terms of the eye test, before you even get into the stats and stuff like that, in terms of the eye test, you're doing really, really well. You know, you're definitely someone that I would, you know, be interested in. You know, you have similar traits in the attacking third, and we'll get onto the, you know, get into the stats in a second, especially when he's in that attacking third. He's very good at the press. You know, he is someone who will try to press. The only downfall that he does have is that once it gets past him, that's when it becomes a little bit like, it's almost, it's a bit like Salah, if I'm being 100% honest with you. Salah's, Salah in his pomp anyway, with Mane and Firmino, really good in that attacking third of the press. Once it gets past him, he's nowhere really to be seen. And as we know, down that right-hand side, it's always a problem defensively, because Salah's obviously usually left up top to kind of do his thing in that attacking third and, you know, pick up the ball, try and facilitate, try and score, get in behind, all those kind of different things, which I believe Bakayoko can do. He's got excellent pace, agility, acceleration. But when it does get past him, that's when it starts becoming a little bit of an issue, which could be an issue, could not. I mean, for Liverpool, is it an issue? Is that something that Klopp would need to necessarily look at? I don't really know, because it doesn't seem like something that he'd be ultimately too bothered with. But, you know, it is just one of those things. Taking a little look here at Bakayoko's ball progression. This is all last season for PSV in all competitions. You can see here in the green is the successful and the red is the unsuccessful. Look, you guys can obviously check this out for yourself anyway. But you see, he's got quite a lot of ball progressions that were quite successful last season, and he's got quite a fair few that you know, that were unsuccessful. But look at the areas of the pitch that he is obviously playing in. Hence why I mentioned, we saw with the heat map earlier on. If I get that up again for you guys, you can see, as I mentioned before, about how he likes to play, you know, infield. You know, once he gets closer to that box, that's where he becomes, you know, really alive. And you can see here with the ball progression, yes, a little bit before the halfway line. Again, that might just be more potentially picking up the ball and stuff like that. But when he gets closer to the box, you can see it there with the greens and even with the reds, that the ones that are unsuccessful. But mostly, I mean, I can't count that, but if there's someone out there who could. But when you do see that with the successful and unsuccessful dribbles, you can see that that's where his game is. That's where he mostly, you know, wants to play his football, is obviously trying to cut in and then obviously, you know, making things happen. And then obviously looking at progressive passes, again, this is where he's playing most of his balls, you know, into the striker, into whoever's obviously further up the field, you know, than him. Again, obviously on that right-hand side, but he plays quite a lot. You know, a lot of progressive passes he is making in games, and a lot of progressive passes he's making into the penalty area. Obviously, PSV are one of the stronger teams, you know, in the Eredivisie, but ultimately, these are really, really good stats in terms of when you're looking at these, you know, looking at these kind of things. If we do take a look at the stats, anyway, you can see here again, really, really, and this is, again, that's why I wanted to kind of talk about him first before we even get on to, you know, the stats and the numbers, because I always like to do the eye test first. Does he look good? Does he do the things that I'm looking for? And again, this is just me personally and what I believe would work in a Liverpool team or should work, potentially in a Liverpool team. It might not. So, of course, I'm not gospel. Nobody is. Only Klopp is. So, only he will know. But when you look at these kind of, these kind of things, again, this is against other attacking midfielders slash wingers, around Europe. You can see here progressive carries, 7.19 progressive carries per game that he is making. Successful take on 3.17, touches in the attacking box, 6 touches. This is all per 90 minutes, really, really good, numbers that he's making in terms of progressing the ball. So again, being a good dribbler, being someone who's able to, get himself into that attacking third, being a bit more daring. And when he does actually get there, can he actually produce? And obviously we'll check that in a second. But I want to show you guys, taking a look here, when we're looking at the tackles, brilliant. He's ranked, 2.12. This is against other wingers out there, 89th percentile. Really, really good blocks as well. He gets them in 1.34. He's ranked in the 86th percentile. Obviously, interceptions, he's ranked in the 64th percentile, 0.56 per game, so just under 1 per 90 minutes. So obviously that would be an area, but even aerial duels or aerial duels 1, he's ranked in the 70th percentile. At the end of the day, again, it might not be something that you're necessarily looking at, but it's something there. Do you know what I mean? It's another thing to add, to your arsenal. Unfortunately, Ben Doak isn't really the tallest of players. So, unfortunately, in that kind of regards, I would expect that to be low. Whether it is or not, I don't actually know, having not actually, not actually checked. But then we look here, at the possession stats here. You can see here, look, touches per game, 60 touches per 90 minutes. In the defensive third, not so much, but again, his game is mostly, as you can see by the touches in the attack, in the mid to attacking third. Even in the mid third, it's not even that great, to be honest, but the attacking third, 36 per game, 95th percentile. In the penalty box, again, 6 touches per 90 minutes. He's getting, within games, really, really good. And take-ons attempted, so he's doing 5.36 per 90 minutes. That means he is constantly giving these defenders absolute headache per game, which is really, really good. Successful take-ons, which is what I really like, because obviously looking at the take-ons actually attempted is all well and good. You can have 100 take-ons attempted, but if you're only getting 10, as an example, you're only getting 5, then it's going to look bad. Maybe 100 a bit too much, but you get what I'm trying to say. But the fact that his is 3.17, ranking really high, the take-on percentage, again, 98th percentile. Again, we're looking at a player, again, fantastic ball control. I promise you, he is you probably say part of like the new school, but I would almost say he reminds me a little bit of Elise in terms of the dribbling style that he has and the ball control that he actually has on the ball. But he has also similar traits to like other players. So I look at someone like a Bukayo Saka or Sadio Mane, those type of players who are quite strong runners as well, and also quite a little bit difficult to kind of get off the ball because one of their ability to be strong runners, but also because of the fact that they're really good dribblers with the ball. So the ball, stick to their feet. Taking a look even, other areas, but you guys can kind of, F brief, you guys can check this out, for yourself. Carries 39 per game that he's doing. Distances, progressive carries, he's ranked in the 99th percentile, 7.19 per game. Really, really good numbers. And I know Liverpool hierarchy are, number people. You know what I mean? We're looking here at his passing. Long passes, you guys can obviously see, kind of in the middle of the graph, not really that good. Is that just due to the team? Do you care that your right winger is not making too many long passes? Do I need him to? Probably not. Do you get what I mean? But we're looking here. Key passes could be a lot better. He's only doing 1.69 per game. Whether that's his role, whether that's context, it's still quite low when you compare it, to the other players. Remember, I did say he is 20 years of age, but we're looking at the passes completed, short distance, attempted, and completion percentages. Really, really good numbers, for Bakayoko, which is really, really quite impressive if I'm being, totally honest with you. And he's doing, if you look down at the bottom, you can see the passes into the penalty area, 2.4 per 90 minutes. So, ranked in the 91 percentile. So again, really good numbers. Assist, XAG, assist, expected assist, decent numbers, man. Decent to good numbers that, he has actually got there. Pass completion in the general sense at the top of your screen. You can see 77% in terms of per 90 minute, which ranks him in the 68th percentile, but still decent numbers, in terms of how many the completion, 45 attempted in games, 34.91. Really good, man. Really, really good. I'm quite impressed, with all of that. And then obviously we go here. This is where he really does thrive, and it is what I mentioned before: carries and the progressive carries, the touches in the attacking third and all that kind of stuff. So again, when we're looking at the stats wise, when you're looking at it, really, really good player in my personal opinion. I can see why, if the rumors were true, and if Liverpool were looking to potentially sign someone on that side, you know, why not? Why not? Of course, there are other players out there. I don't know what the fee would be for someone like him. I don't think it would be that high. Liverpool seem to have a decent relationship with PSV as well. Obviously, done the Gakpo deal, so it might not even be something that necessarily would need to worry about too tough. If we take a look here, I'll just share my screen for you guys. Boom, boom. So hopefully you guys can obviously see this. Let's just enlarge on that for you. Obviously, transfer market have got him rated at 10 million euros. Let's enlarge it a bit more. We'll get it fit the screen so you guys can obviously see that. So obviously this is all last season. Played 39 games in all competitions, 9 goals, 6 assists, 15 goals and assists in 39 games. Pretty decent. Obviously playing for the senior team, playing in the Europa League, Champions League qualification, cup games. I think those are a couple of games potentially for the youth teams kind of thing. And obviously you can see here on your right hand side, you can see he played 37 games as a right winger. So basically played all of his games, bar 2, where he played on the left wing, but he still got himself a goal, in those 2 games. But most of his goals and assists, or all of his assists, coming from, that right hand side. And, you look at it here, just in terms of how many games he's obviously played here, a lot of games for the under 21s, but he's catching up really, really close. And again, as I mentioned before, he's already got himself 4 caps for Belgium, got himself that goal as well. So you're looking at all of these kind of things, and you are thinking to yourself, is this potentially someone that Liverpool should be looking at? Is this someone that you would like for Liverpool to look at, in a general sense? Again, I'll leave that up to you guys. But, I just want to be as competitive as possible. I want to make sure that we've got the best available, to be able to continue the growth and development of this team. I'm not too fussed when it comes to players and stuff like that. If there's a better player out there than what we've got and we can get them, I'm all for it. Everyone should be all for it at the end of the day. I understand, maybe player coming through and stuff like that, give them a chance. And yes, give them a chance. But ultimately, if there's an opportunity to get better players, why wouldn't you do it? It's for the betterment of the team. There's not one player ever in the history, bar maybe Messi, and he's an exception to the rule, where you'd say, nah, I'd rather just wait on this one to see how it goes. I think Ben Doak is a fantastic player, and obviously I am looking at those two in a general sense, but ultimately I am also looking at, he's 20 years of age, he's already playing senior men's football. Ben Doak is still young, so by that age he could be playing senior men's football, but at this current moment in time, I can see the kind of vision, and obviously in my opinion he'd be better than a Harvey Elliott, on that kind of side. If we do a bit of a comparison, get this up for you. Let's see if it's still there. Yeah. Boom, boom, boom. So if I share my screen again for you guys, I was taking a little look. I was having a bit of fun with it, to be honest with you. I really do pick up Squawka every time, and they really do have a really good system here that they've obviously got going on. So you guys can obviously see this is actually his full name, to be honest. Saint Cyr Bakayoko. I've also compared it with Jeremy Doku, another player that Liverpool over the last 3 years has been linked with. And I've done Saka, but I've done Saka when he was age 20, not the Saka of today. Those stats would be highly in favor, but not even just that. I just didn't feel like it was a fair reflection, so to speak, in regards to where Saka's development and level kind of is at this current moment in time in terms of first team at Arsenal, England regular, their developments. He's way ahead in regards to that. And I just wanted to take a look really, at what all three, give or take, at the same age or maybe like a year or 2 out, kind of looked like, kind of thing. So hence the reason why I could have added, there are more players potentially that we could potentially add in there. I thought of Harvey Elliott, but I said, because he's not played in right wing, the stats won't really make sense. I'm judging a centre midfielder with a right winger. Ben Doak, I couldn't really find the under 21 stats, so couldn't really put him up there. So I said, let's just try these 3. If you guys have any other players that you think should be added in there, let me know in the comment section. I'll take that into consideration for next time. But obviously looking here, forget all of that stuff. Goals 0.4, at the same ages, give or take. Doku obviously comes out at 0.5, so just ahead, kind of thing. Saka was only 0.2. Saka's not the Saka that we know of today, so definitely something to think about. Looking at goals from inside the box, again, Doku comes out 0.5 on top. We should be signed Doku. I know Manchester City are obviously interested in him. Saka again 0.2, and Bakayoko at 0.3. Goals from outside the box. This is where Saka and Bakayoko, who has got a really, really good shot on him, by the way. Both, and by the way, all these guys are all left-footed. So yeah, just taking a look at that. Conversion rates at 16.67. Doku's at 28.57. Really, really good. That is really, really good. And Saka's was only 13.16. Again, the Saka that we know of today, the Saka that we do see, isn't the Saka that we've always seen. Saka's always been a very, very good player, by the way. Let's not make no bones about that. I've always thought, he's a fantastic player. He's definitely, someone who, just in a general sense, I just feel like he's just someone who really has developed his game. He really has. By the way, I said Doku was left-footed. Doku is right-footed, but he plays on the right wing is what I meant to actually say. But yeah, Saka, really, really good player now at this current moment in time, but he hasn't always been the player that we know of today. Taking a look here, shot accuracy in games per 90 minutes, 63%, really, really good from Bakayoko. And that's where, again, Saka doesn't really come out the best. Comes out the worst out of the three, and then obviously Doku comes in at 57%. Shots on target per 90, again 1.3. Saka again 0.8, 0.9. Assists 0.4, and both Doku and Saka at 0.2. Chances created in games, Doku coming out on top in that regards. Ken Saka's falling down. I'm not trying to get onto Saka. Saka's one of my favorite players, but I just want people to understand and see there is obviously development, and to also big up Saka for really jumping up his game and putting himself, into that kind of now position of being someone who is a force, someone who players fear, in the Premier League, and he's developed so well, kind of thing. But everyone's got to start somewhere ultimately, and that's kind of what, I'm looking at here. Passes completed, 32%, 32.5 from Bakayoko, 30 for Doku, and 28.2. Passing accuracy, Doku's obviously coming out on top. And then obviously, then it goes, which I'm quite surprised, to be fair, Bakayoko and then Saka, because of the way that Arsenal played. But, maybe that might just not be the way that, Saka was obviously playing. Crosses attempted, 4.1. Saka does come out on top in that regards, 5.3 at that age. Doku's not putting in that many crosses. Not really putting in that many crosses. His accuracy is obviously going to be better, but he's not putting in anywhere near as much as a Bakayoko or Bukayo Saka at those same ages. So, yeah, that's definitely something to potentially look at. And obviously successful crosses from open play, one per game. Wish it was more, but ultimately, it's there. Through balls attempted per 90, he's got it down at 0. Saka's at 0.1. Through balls attempted there. Passes completed in opposition half, 26 for Bakayoko, 23.8 for Doku, and 20 for Saka. Forward passes, this is where Saka really did thrive, 8.1 per 90 minutes. And then Doku, and then Bakayoko. Duels contested, I put that in because at Liverpool, I just always feel like, that's just one of those kind of things. Looking here, Doku really good in that regards. In fact, Doku really good in the duels, take-ons, ground duels. He really does kind of dwarf these guys in most of these things when you look at it as a whole, to be honest with you, bar interceptions. Where that's where Saka really did thrive in that regards, which might be something to think about. But yeah, when you look at the duels contested, he's dwarfing both of them. Take-ons, which is something I really did want to look at. Doku's doing 6.8 per game. Saka was only doing 1.7, and Bakayoko's doing 3 take-ons, per game. And then obviously you can see the duels, ground duels contested. Again, the way that Liverpool play and stuff like that. These are little things. Interceptions as well was something I looked at as well, because I was like, But Bakayoko is obviously coming out in second, not too far behind, Bukayo Saka. And I think, yeah, again, you know what? It was just one of those things. I just wanted you guys to just kind of take a look at that. Again, you're looking at a star now in Bukayo Saka. You're looking at probably the next one in terms of Doku, in terms of, I know Manchester City obviously after him. It looks like a player that they might potentially sign. I don't know what the situation is, over there. But that's why I wanted to just kind of compare all three. I felt like that was the right thing to potentially do. I might be wrong. If you guys think I am, let me know, obviously, in the comment section. And last but not least, we'll take a look at the style of play that they've got here, the scout reports. As mentioned in the scout report, Bakayoko is not just a winger that looks to take opposition defenders on before beating them and taking a large number of shots on goal. One strong trait that the young Belgian possesses is his ability to pick teammates out in and around the penalty box, with Bakayoko consistently looking for the best options to get shots off on goal. As I mentioned before, he is a player like that. He does trust his own abilities. He will like to cut in, get those shots off. So, is that the type of player you think, Liverpool should be looking at? Is that someone that you would obviously like us to sign? Or again, like I mentioned before, you still got Ben Doak there. Are you willing to just kind of trust that development will hopefully pan out, in the future? And if not at Liverpool, where do you think then he could potentially go? I mean, Brighton seems to be the new hub, if I'm being totally honest with you. So maybe that might actually be somewhere he may potentially be thinking about. But you know what? We wait and we will see. But thank you guys for tuning in to today's Scout Watch. Johan Bakayoko of PSV, as I mentioned, and as you can see, scrolled across the bottom, Liverpool have shown a little bit of interest in the Belgian youngster. Let me know what you guys obviously think about him. Make sure to smash the like button. Make sure you share. Make sure you subscribe. I'm G. We're out.